Oh, good morning. Today I'm working on our downstairs bathroom door. We bought the door, and I'm going to build the frame and all the casings, the jamb and the casings. So I'll show you what. This is some of the maple that I had planed up last winter. So this is the jamb stock and this is the casing stock, and it's let's see, it's almost enough for 2 doors. So I was making it up, so I figured I would get to this point. Still has to be jointed and ripped and jointed the other edge, and then I'm going to put a bead on all the casing. But here's the door that we picked out for the bathroom, the downstairs bathroom cellar door. It looks like it has some tape on there. Oh, it's on the other side. So it's Douglas Fir, and it's semi-transparent glass. And because it's a bathroom door, the glass has to be tempered. So it's a pretty expensive door, but we decided that we want to spend money where we think it's going to be most visible, and spend it on quality stuff. So all of the upstairs doors are also going to be Douglas Fir, and I'll end up making all the jambs for those as well. Somewhere over here, it's just this what is it, brushed nickel hardware that we've got for it. So anyway, that's what I'm working on today. It's first week of January, and it's snowing out and it's cold, and it's hard to get motivated to do anything outside. So right now we have a curtain on our bathroom door, and so the object is to put a door in that spot. So I'll just film me making the jamb and hanging the door. So that's the object, is to get I might end up painting all this stuff before I install it. So we might not get it all done today. Anyways, I'll get set up and we'll start milling up some of this material. Joining the final edge. So the next step in the process, Apollo's growling at something, is to now that they have a a jointed edge, is to rip them to just over the size that I'm looking for. So I'm going to actually make the casings 4 inches. So all these boards are slightly over the 4.5 or so. So that's the next step. I'll turn on the vacuum system and I'll rip them all to about 4 1/16, and the jam stock I'll rip to 5 1/8, because I want to joint them and have them finish out at 5 1/16. I had ordered the jam. It would have come at 3.5. It would have come at 4.5 inches. The 3.5 inch studs and 2 layers of 1/2 inch sheetrock gives me 4.5 inches. But the problem with that's what the manufacturers would ship, would be 4.5 inches. But it never works out, because with the discrepancies in the framing and the sheetrock, it's either at least 4 9/16 minimum. So if you order jam stock, you're always fighting with it to get it to fit into an opening it's already too small, too narrow for. So the studs in our house are full 2x4s with 2 layers of 1/2 inch, gives me 5 inches. But if you go and measure them, you really should be, the jams should really be at least 5 1/16. So I'm going to rip the jams to 5 1/8 and joint them down to 5 1/16. And that way when I go to put the casings on, I won't be fighting with them. One side fits, the other side doesn't. So that's the next step. We're going to turn the vacuum system and rip these down. Step is I'm going to rough cut them to length. That just makes them a lot easier to handle. This is what the material looks like after it's been processed to this point. I've got stock here enough for 2 doors. This is the casings, and these are the jams. And I am going to do some other operations to this stuff, like I just measured the door. It's 1 3/8 inches. I'm going to put a dado in here and then put a spline so that the door will close up against that. So I have to do that to all of the jams, and I have to make up the spline. And then I have to, all of the casings, they're all going to get run through the shaper and have a bead put on them. And the last step before they get sanded and put together is I have to route out for the hinges on the hinge side of the doors, door jams, and route out the hinges on the door itself. So there's still a ton of work to do. But I mean, I couldn't buy these jams without making extension jams for them because the way what I was talking about earlier. So, you know, this is just the process I have to go through. Well, good morning. Back on the bathroom door project. This morning, you see that? I got the door up on the bench. I'm going to do a complete sanding both sides. I know it's been sanded through probably a time saver sander of some kind, but I'm going to go over the whole thing, break all the edges so that when I bring it up to the house, it's all sanded. I don't have to do any sanding inside. And you see, I have it on the bench. I have it on. I have a friend who's in the flooring industry, and he graciously gave me a bunch of years ago. He gave me some scraps for. I guess this goes under the carpeting, and it works great. Can roll it up and throw it in the corner, and roll it out, and it's very soft. Yes, the electricity has been shut off to the table saw, so it can't possibly bite me. And I'm going to be using my stacked dado head cutter to make the dado in the jams. So what I have is just a dado set. It's nothing special. It's not a very expensive one. Basically, this has an 1/8 of an inch curve. That one has an 1/8 of an inch curve. And this insert also has an 1/8 of an inch curve. So that's going to give me my 3/8 inch dado. So just stack them in here. Make sure the blades are not lined up. And put the washer and nut back on. And then I have a few inserts. This one is about the right size. You don't want a huge gap between your dado blade and everything else. So anyway, that's the insert for there. Let's see. Next step is to set the fence to 1 3/8 inches. And then I'll run a test piece, just because I've got the scrap here, and I want to make sure that it's too high. Set it down a little bit. I want to make sure that everything is correct before I run the actual material through. It's actually a little bit too wide. I'm going to have to fix that. But the dado is 1/4 of an inch deep, which is exactly what I want. So this is off a little bit. Alright, we're perfect. We're 1 3/8 in here. 1 inch, and I can't draw backwards, is that correct? That's 1 3/8. This groove is 3/8 by 1/4, so that's perfect. I used to apply the stops, but it's hard to get them perfect, and then you end up with a bunch of nails in them. And this way I can make the splines and put them in here and glue them, and I know that they're perfectly straight. That means this is perfect all the way down, and there are no fastenings showing, which is kind of the key. I don't want this fastening showing if I can help it. So I'm going to run all these through the table saw, and then we'll make up the spline. Made up a bunch of splines. I thought I was no sense in just making one for one door, so I made not all that I need, but I made a bunch. And as you can see, that's what they look like. The edges here will be broken off before they get glued, or after they get glued in place. But before I can glue these in place, I have to, let's see here. I have to route out for the hinges, because otherwise the spline's in the way. So I've got a route out. I'm going to make a jig so that I can get them all the same on here, and I can use the jig on the door too. So I'm going to go eat lunch, and then I come back. I'm going to start working on that. After they get routed, you can see the planer marks, so I'll sand them, and then I'll glue in all the splines, and then we'll see where we're at. There's a lot of steps, but it's worth it in the end. Comes out with a nice quality product. So. So I marked out for the hinges, and I thought about making a jig. I had previously attempted to make a jig here. This was when I made the temporary doors for the house. And I just think it's just, I'm going to use that to score these lines here. But I'm going to just route it out by hand. I should go find some glue and glue these splines in next. I think that's the next step. There's the actual door. That's the top and that's the bottom, because you see the bigger bottom rail. Years ago I saw this in some book and I made a pair of them. They're meant to hold the door. So the more weight you put down, the door fits in the slot, the more weight goes down on that bottom spreader, the more they clamp together to hold the door. It worked great. Hold the door nice and steady. I could put the other one on, but I don't think I need to. So this is the hinge side jamb. I don't have that glued in yet, the spline, but this is the template that I tried to make up for the last set of doors, and it didn't really work out. I don't know why. But you can see this is the top of the jamb, and then I left a nickel's worth of space there. Nickels are really prevalent and they work good for spacers. And you can see that I marked the top, using this jig, I marked the top of the hinge locations, and then I proceeded to route out using the hinge as a guide, mark the bottoms and route that out. So now this is actually labeled the top. So what I'll do is I'll put this on the top of this door. Hold on, let me get you set up. So this top of this thing represents the top of the door. So if I just let's get this over here. If I flush that up to the top of the door, and only marking the tops, just like I did previously, what I've done is I just use a utility knife and mark the actual top of the hinges. Take the actual hinge and mark the bottoms of the hinge locations. So the hinge should fit in there nicely. It doesn't wiggle around. Anyway, there you go. I'll turn the camera on when I get to the next step. I'll give you a little tip for what it's worth. This is the outside of the door. This faces the bathroom. So the hinge is going to fit like this. These hinges, they're very close to being flush, but they're not. And you don't want to, the hinge to be below this surface, because what will happen is the hinge will bind up on itself when it closes. Hold on, let me get the dog. Come on, come in. So, get back to this. You want it close, but not below this surface. If I move the hinge flush or just back a little bit, the door will jam against this stop. So I'm going to cheat just a little and move the hinge out this way, just a whisker, to give me a little bit of clearance. No, you will never be able to tell, and then the door won't be jamming up against the stops when you go to close it, and the hinges, something's not right. So what we're going to do is just sneak that out just a very tiny amount, so that the door never actually touches the jam. It is like a whisker gap in between there. I've just found out the hard way that if you try to get everything perfect, and you can, get this all perfect here, if the door swells or the stop swell or something, you've left yourself no room in here. You put some paint on the door or on the jam, and all of a sudden it's too tight. So by leaving myself a little bit of a gap in there, by moving the hinge over, it allows for a little play, because nothing in the real world is perfect, especially with wood. You've got to give it a little bit of room. All right, as you can see, I got it in. I got the hinges on. The stop's still not glued on, but just to go show you that that's what it'll close up like that. Of course, the door will be hinging that way. But that's basically the procedure. You may have to mess with the hinges ever so slightly to get them in, but these went in really well. So there you have it. That's the next step. Is I gotta find some glue. I'll go buy some. Glue these in, and then assemble the frame, and bring it up to the house and put it in place. So the door's plumb on the hinge side, and flush with the sheetrock. And now I'm just trying to make sure the margins are all right, and screwing it in place. But doors are all flush with the sheetrock, and you close it. The margin here is all even, so that means the door's not twisted. And I think, well, you can see the stops in here. Earlier I was talking about leaving a little gap in there, and that is so that when we paint this, we don't have anything binding up in there. So that's excellent. Just like I planned it. Amazing, huh? I've got to share something with you. I see people install doors, and they shim them down here and over there to start with, and that doesn't really make any sense to me, because I shim all the very first shims I put in are at the top, because you can't compress the top header, top of the jamb. You can bend the sides in all day long, but that's not what you want to do. You want to get the door in place, and you can drive these shims in really hard, and it'll hold the door in place until you get the rest of the shims in place. So I always start out at the top, because you can't compress that top jamb. And then at that point, you can work to get the door where you want it. But shim behind every hinge is a good practice. Obviously at the bottom of the door, and you definitely want to put shims behind the lock set where the latch is. Novice. Next step in the door process.
Can't just leave it unstained.
No, it'll get all grimy.
Only one available on the crew.
All right. Well, it's really cold outside, so I'm going to be installing this trim that I made up for the bathroom door. I got them all painted. I actually took the time and cut them all to length. The two side pieces and the header piece. I'm going to go down to the shop and make the there's the dog, I'm going to stick him in, and make the cut on the top header piece so that the bead wraps around. And the shop is freezing, so I'm going to go down and do that, and I'll come back and I'll show you how I put it all together with some biscuit. I'm going to use pocket screws on the back side and glue. There you have it. I have to say, I'm really impressed with this maple. It takes paint really well. I think it's gonna look really nice when it's all said and done. So, all right, as you can see, I went down to the shop and I cut the header with a notch so that it will join up with the side casings like so. So now I just have to assemble. All right, this has got the outside one just temporarily clamped in place. So I'm going to actually take it back off and glue it and put it in place. All right, I'm going to let the glue do all the work. Fewer nails and more glue. And in an hour, I'll take all the clamps off and we'll get ready to paint. Good morning, Apollo. Here's a view of what the door looks like from the outside, all finished. I think it came out pretty nice. So thanks for sticking with this video. It was a little bit longer than I expected, but thanks for watching. Stick around. There's next video that's coming up is about the future barn project. So anyway, thanks for watching. Oh, crunchy, hold on. There, how's that?